The baby's cries pierced through the cabin like tiny shards of glass. Passengers groaned, rolled their eyes, and a few pressed their call buttons. But amid the murmurs of annoyance, one young woman unclipped her seatbelt and turned toward the sound. The man holding him looked utterly helpless, his expensive suit wrinkled, his eyes hollow like someone who hadn't slept in days. The flight attendant hesitated, unsure how to calm the growing tension. But Lena, without thinking twice, walked over. "May I?" The man looked up, startled. His deep gray eyes flickered with hesitation, but the desperation in his son's cries was louder than his pride. "Please," he whispered, handing the boy over. Lena cradled the child against her chest, her movements tender, instinctive. She began to hum softly a tune her mother used to sing to her when storms frightened her as a child. Slowly, the boy's sobs quieted. His little fingers clutched her hair, and his breathing steadied. The cabin grew silent. Even the flight attendants stood still, watching in awe as the woman's voice, soft, soothing, full of emotion, wrapped around the baby like a warm blanket. When the boy finally drifted off to sleep, Lena smiled faintly and whispered, "There we go, sweetheart. You're safe." She carefully handed him back to his father. "Thank you," the man said quietly, his voice heavy with something unspoken. "You have no idea how much that means." "It's no problem," Lena replied, brushing off the attention. "Poor thing must be exhausted." She returned to her seat, unaware that half the passengers were now whispering about her and that the man she had just helped was Ethan Cross. Ethan sat still, his son asleep in his arms, watching Lena from across the aisle. There was something about her presence, something pure, unpretentious. People usually recognized him, rushed to impress him, or avoided him entirely. But this woman had approached with no hesitation, no judgment, just kindness. For the rest of the flight, he found his gaze drifting back to her. She had her earbuds in, sketching something in a worn notebook. A small bracelet dangled on her wrist, cheap but clearly precious, with the name Hope engraved on it. When they landed, Lena smiled politely, waved goodbye, and disappeared into the crowd. Ethan wanted to say something, thank her again, offer to help her somehow, but by the time he stood up, she was gone. Days passed, but Ethan couldn't get her out of his mind. He had everything money could buy: a sprawling mansion, companies, cars, influence, but none of it filled the emptiness left when his wife Clara had died during childbirth 2 years ago. His little boy Noah was the only reason he kept breathing, but even then, raising him alone felt impossible some days. And then came the stranger on the plane, the woman who calmed his son with nothing but a lullaby. 2 weeks later, fate intervened. One of the teachers had fallen ill, and a substitute had stepped in temporarily. And there she was, Lena. Her hair was tied back, and she was kneeling on the floor, painting with a group of toddlers, laughing softly as they made a colorful mess. Noah sat beside her, giggling for the first time in weeks. Ethan froze. Lena looked up, surprised. "Oh, you're Noah's father?" He nodded, almost disbelieving. You're the woman from the plane," she smiled. "Small world, huh?" Over the next few weeks, their paths continued to cross. Ethan began volunteering at the daycare more often, bringing snacks, reading stories to the kids, anything to see the way Lena's eyes lit up when she laughed. She was kind, but there was a quiet sadness in her too, something she tried to hide. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. She hesitated before answering. "My mom's been sick. Cancer. I'm saving up for her treatments. That's why I took extra shifts here." Her voice trembled, but she quickly forced a smile. "Sorry, that's not your problem." Ethan's chest tightened. "Don't apologize. You've been carrying too much alone," she shrugged. "We all do what we have to." He wanted to tell her he could help, that he had more money than she'd ever need, but he stopped himself. Something told him she wouldn't accept charity. She was proud, and her strength was part of what drew him to her. As months passed, Ethan and Lena grew closer. She became Noah's favorite person after his father, and slowly, she became Ethan's light. Her laughter filled the quiet halls of his mansion when he finally invited her and her mother for dinner. Not everything was easy. The tabloids exploded the moment someone spotted Ethan Cross, the billionaire widower, having lunch with a mystery woman. Lena's phone was flooded with messages, her privacy invaded. She confronted Ethan, tears in her eyes. I didn't ask for this, and I never wanted to drag you into my world like this." She shook her head. "Maybe we're just too different," and she left. Weeks passed. Ethan went through the motions of his life meetings, business calls, endless press appearances, but every night the mansion felt colder. Noah cried for Lena every time he went to bed. One night, Ethan found his son holding a small paper star. "Lena made it," the boy said sleepily. She said, "Wishes come true if you believe." That night, Ethan made a wish of his own. The next morning, he drove to the daycare, not as a CEO, but as a man who'd finally realized what mattered most. He found Lena there, sitting by the window, reading to the children. When she looked up, he simply said, "I, Don T, want to live in a world where you read just someone I once met on a plane." Her eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, I don't care what anyone says," he continued, voice trembling. "You made us a family again." She stepped forward, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I was just doing what felt right." Months later, as the sun set over a quiet garden, Lena sang softly to Noah now, sitting between her and Ethan, her voice carrying the same warmth that once calmed him on a crowded plane. Only this time, there were no strangers, no distance, no pain, just family. And a lullaby that had turned strangers into something extraordinary. Love. Moral. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the entire course of someone's life. You never know whose world you're healing with a simple song, a gentle word, or a moment of compassion.